December 14. 402. Anastasius I, Pope, died. He reconciled the Eastern and Western churches, and was much respected for his sanctity and virtue. 628. Pilgrimage of the Emperor Heraclius at Jerusalem. 1417. John Oldcastle, the good Lord Cobham, the first author and an early martyr of the Reformation, hung alive in chains and burned to death. 1622. Valentine Smalsius, a celebrated Socinian writer, died at Krakow. 1624. Charles Howard, an intrepid English admiral, died. He commanded the English fleet at the defeat of the Spanish Armada. 1681. Francis Vavasseur, a French Jesuit, died, distinguished as a teacher of rhetoric and belles lettres at Paris, and as a lecturer on the Scriptures. 1704. Joseph Dutch de Vancy died, a French poet, author of several Scripture tragedies. 1710. Henry Aldrich died, an eminent English scholar, divine, architect and musician. 1713. Thomas Rymer, a famous English antiquary, died. 1715. Thomas Tennyson, Archbishop of Canterbury, died, a celebrated polemical writer against popery. 1716. William Trumbull died, an English statesman, ambassador to France and afterwards Secretary of State. 1735. Thomas Tenner, a learned English antiquary, died, leaving behind him a valuable work, upon which he had been employed 40 years. 1759. Professor Braun ascertained the congelation of quicksilver. 1769. Samuel Neeland, an eminent Boston printer, died. He published the first edition of the Bible in America, which was in 4/2, with a London imprint, to evade the patent which was held by English and Scottish publishers, cum privilegio. 1774. The citizens of New Hampshire attacked and carried the king's castle, and removed the powder. 1775. Gen Howe ordered the Old North Meeting and 100 other wooden houses, to be taken down in Boston and used for firewood. 1775. British Lord Dunmore defeated by the Americans at Norfolk, Virginia. 1776. British overran New Jersey. 1780. Ignatius Sancho, an African author, died at London, aged 51. He was born on board of a slave ship. His letters possessed great originality. 15. 1781. Gen Green informed the Board of War that he had been unable to advance on the British for 10 days for want of ammunition, that he had not paper with which to make returns, no camp kettles, etc., that he lay within a few miles of the enemy and had not 6 rounds per man, that he had been 7 months in the field without taking off his clothes one night. 1782. British under Gen Leslie evacuated Charleston, South Carolina, and embarked under cover of the King's ship Caroline. The Americans under Gen Wayne took immediate possession of it. 1785. John Baptist Cipriani, a famous Italian painter, died. He settled in England, but his numerous pieces were spread over Europe by the graver of Bartolozzi. 1789. Caleb Elliot died of starvation. He was a visionary enthusiast who imagined that he was called upon to fast 40 days, and actually lived 16 days without food of any kind, having refused all sorts of sustenance. 1792. Arthur Lee, an American statesman, died. He was an ardent friend of the rights of the colonies, which he rendered essential services as agent at London, and afterwards as minister with Franklin in France. He is represented as a man of uniform patriotism, sound understanding, great probity, plain manners and strong passions. 1796. Anthony Wayne, Commander-in-Chief of the United States troops, died at Presque Isle, aged 51. He distinguished himself in the wars of the Revolution by his bravery and untiring patriotism. 1797. Great earthquake at Camana. More than 4/5 of the city was entirely destroyed, and a number of persons perished. 1799. George Washington, the American hero and statesman, the man on whom, in times of danger, every eye was turned and all hopes were placed, expired without a struggle, at Mount Vernon, in the 68th year of his age. 1803. The British under Maj. Gen. Wellesley, since Lord Wellington, carried by storm the almost impregnable fortress of Gibraltar, in the East Indies. 1807. An extraordinary large and brilliant meteor was seen in Connecticut, exploding at 3 different times, each explosion accompanied with a fall of meteoric stones, one of which was probably 200 pounds weight. 1814. British flotilla of 45 boats with 1,200 men and 43 cannon captured several American gunboats on Lake Borgne near New Orleans, manned by 23 guns and 182 men, after an action of about 3 hours. 1815. The Prince Regent of Portugal at Rio de Janeiro proclaimed the Brazils to be a separate kingdom. 1816. Charles Stanhope, an English statesman, died. He is better known by his numerous mechanical inventions, and as a man of science. 1818. Edward Law, Lord Ellenborough, an eminent English lawyer, died. 1826. Conrad Maltebrun, a Danish poet, political and philosophical writer, and geographer, died at Paris. He was forced to leave his own country for the tendency of his writings to liberty. 1829. Commencement of a civil war in Chile, by an action between the armies of Luctra and Pietro, in which the latter were defeated. 1843. Charles Goldsborough, author of the Naval History of the United States, died at Washington, D.C., where he was engaged in the Navy Department. 1849. Edward Doubleday, a distinguished British naturalist, died at London, aged 39. He visited the United States in 1835, and returned with a large and rare collection of specimens in most of the branches of natural history, which he distributed to several of the public institutions of England. 1851. Joel Munsell, an American statesman, died, aged 72. He was a native of South Carolina, was Secretary of War under Mr. Van Buren, and opposed to the revolutionary schemes of some of the politicians of his native state. 1852. Madame de Rosemont, better known as Fanny Wright, died at Cincinnati, aged 57. She was born at Dundee, Scotland, and came to America with considerable property, where she gained great notoriety by her lectures and writings. 1855. Joel Abbott, commanding the United States Squadron in the East Indies, died at Hong Kong, China, with signal ability and discretion.